It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means. It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Yeah, baby, here we are. Last episode of 2015. And thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. Let me get the chat room open so I can see. There they are, the real audience. Hello, everybody. How are you guys? My computer's being twitchy today. We don't have a producer because Lisa's on vacation. If we go black, I'll be back, okay? I promise. Anyway, today's show is the most popular genres of music needed in 2016, which seems appropriate considering we are at the end of 2015. Let's see, this is the last episode of the year. Yep. May know that. Oh, as many of you know, not that this is an afterthought, but my mom passed away 12 days ago, and I've been getting tons of condolence emails and notes and flowers and phone calls from you guys. Thank you so much for that. It means a lot to my family and to me. The notes have been very, very comforting to all of us, and I'm so sorry I haven't been able to answer each and every one of them. This all started shortly after the road rally, so I've been bouncing back and forth to Chicago a lot, spending a lot of time there, and very thankfully was able to spend a lot of quality time with my mom before she passed away. And I'm back, and she was always very proud of me, Taxi, and this show in particular. She loved it when she ran into a guy, I think a guy who owned a restaurant, and told my parents that he was a musician, and she said, "Oh, my son's in the music business." "Really? What does he do?" And she said, "He owns a company called Taxi." And the guy's like, "Really? You're the parents of the Taxi guy?" So that just made her, my stock went up a lot with my mom. So anyway, thanks to all of you guys for the kind letters and notes and phone calls and flowers and that sort of stuff. But I'm back in LA, and very glad to be back in the saddle here at Taxi and doing the last episode of Taxi TV for 2015. So as I said in the email earlier, one of the most frequent questions that I've gotten throughout the years, and it always obviously amps up. Thank you. I see a lot of people giving condolences in the chat room. So thank you guys. I appreciate that. Anyway, at the end of the year, people, especially like around rally time, people come up and go, "So, what's on the horizon for the next year? What are people looking for?" So I've spent the last 3 or 4 hours typing this out, and there's just no way to cover it all in the amount of time that we've got here. And everything I say, comes with a caveat that there are no absolutes, and there's no way to 100% predict what the industry is going to need. Certainly, it's a moving target, and things do change, and we see changes. One of the things I've noticed is we're getting a lot more requests for instrumentals than we've had over the last few years, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But there are a lot of variables, and some genres are consistently needed, and then there are others that are dictated by the type of show, the types of scenes, and even the characters in the shows. I thought I just saw a light go out, but I didn't. By the way, I don't think I addressed this further on down, so let me start the show by talking about music that goes along with characters. And I was reminded of this because over the weekend there was an NCIS marathon, and oh gosh, who's the Abby, the girl that works in the lab on NCIS? Every time Gibbs walks into the lab, have you ever noticed there's always a similar type of music playing? It goes with her character, and that happens a lot. It happens a lot in reality shows. The Real Housewives of Los Angeles or Beverly Hills or Orange County or New York or New Jersey, whatever. The characters seem to have music, a type of music. Sometimes it's very, very similar music that plays with the characters. So that's noteworthy. And it's just something you should watch. When you watch the shows, take note of that. But let's look at the type of show first. For dramas like Grey's Anatomy, you'll often find that they use songs with lyrics in video montages near or at the end of the show. Video montage is, typically like 45 seconds to maybe even 3 minutes long, and it tells part of the story, but it doesn't have dialogue in it, or very, very little dialogue. And usually a song comes up, and the lyric describes um, what the dialogue would be saying. It completes a thought, or underscores an emotion, or puts a bow on the entire episode and the script and the storyline. Montages are often about relationships, problems in a relationship, the beginning of a relationship, or the end of a relationship. I'm redundant here. Montage is a silencing scene, and I said all that. Um, so for a scene about the end of a relationship or a problematic relationship, the song could be about how hard it is to work things out. And the music itself would likely be down tempo and probably somewhat depressing. If it's about a new relationship, the song would likely be emotionally up tempo. Maybe the song's tempo itself would probably be even a little bit faster. Um, if it's about the end of a relationship, the song would be obviously down tempo, and the lyric would talk about the sadness of an ending, but in a general and universal way, avoiding the specifics of that relationship, most likely. Music supervisors would call that too on the nose, meaning it's almost corny because it talks about that particular scene. So the lyric might be something that's, about a bittersweet ending, but probably not about "I'll never be kicking your cat off the fluffy down comforter in your pink girly room." I mean, that would just be like, really? Not just, the pink girly part, but it's too specific about that particular romance or a scene that happens in that romance. So they're going to be looking for something that's more general and universal that we could all relate to. So, what genre would those songs most likely be? And again, there are no absolutes. But most of those songs are going to be singer songwriter oriented songs. Maybe just a stripped down acoustic guitar vocal thing, maybe a piano vocal, maybe an acoustic guitar and a piano, maybe one or the other that's got a cello added to it. Um, Probably slower. This is for the end of a relationship or a problematic relationship. Slower stuff, and maybe a fuller ensemble for the happier, more up tempo stuff. If there's no dialogue, the lyrics become very important to the placement, obviously. So a placement like that might generate an upfront sync fee of, let's say, 500 to maybe 2,500 bucks. That number's down quite a bit. 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was not unusual to be in the $2,500 to $5,000 range. It could be more than 2,500 bucks today if you're a well-known artist, if you've got a big following on YouTube or social media, or you're a working band or artist that's got a following, or you've sold a lot of CDs or downloads and you've got some brand recognition out there. You might get more for that. But typically 500 to 2,500 is probably the range. I'd say a lot of them that I've seen lately have been 1,000 or 1,500. So let's consider other uses for songs in dramas or other scripted TV shows, as opposed to unscripted or reality shows. So remember in the email I sent out, and I know I've said this before on Taxi TV, remember cars, bars, and restaurants? Cars, bars, and restaurants. Scenes that use music often take place in cars, bars, and restaurants. We could also add parties to that list. And the songs used in those scenes would often be dance pop or EDM or something that's really contemporary and probably very rhythmic. What you would hear at a party, often with lyrics that reflect a fun, partyish theme. Those placements are usually what's called background source uses. It's noteworthy that the music used as background source music, meaning that it ostensibly comes from a source like a jukebox or a stereo, that is at the party in the background. Those songs have a lyric, but oftentimes it's so far down in the mix that the lyric is almost inconsequential. But nonetheless, the music supervisors and the music libraries that supply a lot of that music to the music supervisors really still prefer to have music with lyrics that are universal, just in case they need to like goose a line or goose a couple of lines. Just even use a few seconds of the music up loudly enough that you can hear the lyrics. So all things being equal, if they had two songs that were equally as wonderful, and the tempo and the melody and the whole vibe of the music really fit the scene, one of the lyrics was not as universal because maybe it talked about, you know, somebody's name, Sally, or a place, Chicago, or a specific time, New Year's Eve. That's going to pull it out of contention if it's compared or contrasted or competing with a song that has all other things equal, you know, equally as good on the melody, equally as well recorded or well produced. Everything about it is working. And that one, the second song, has a lyric that's very general about you make me feel wonderful, or, you know, we've grown so close, or you mean so much. Those are general concepts and ideas that could work for almost anything, as opposed to Sally in a town and a, you know, specific date or time of year. So there you go. There's something that shouldn't be in there. I'll get to that later. If the scene takes place in a rough and tumble roadhouse bar, like you might see in a show like Sons of Anarchy, which I miss. I miss having that on the air. In Sons of Anarchy, you might hear, you know, something coming from the jukebox in the back of a bar or their clubhouse. They always had music there. What might you hear from that jukebox? Gritty blues rock, southern rock, hard rock, rock in almost any of its forms, but probably not, if you think about it, probably not glam rock. I mean, that would be pretty silly, right? Glam rock in the background of Sons of Anarchy. Let's see, what else? Prog rock. I can't hear a band like Yes playing in the background of a scene in Sons of Anarchy. So this is where thinking about it. This is, you know, if you want to know where music is going next year, watch TV and think about it. Use your common sense. Because it tells you everything you really need to know. I mean, you could look at the taxi listings, which are obviously all coming from the industry. I mean, what greater barometer for what the industry is looking for than the taxi listings? But watch TV and think about, you know, let's use the Roadhouse example. A bunch of biker guys in a roadhouse. You know, you're going to hear blues rock, maybe blues, southern rock, hard rock. You could also hear country, but what kind of country? Are you going to hear, you know, Loretta Lynn doing Stand By Your Man? Probably not. Are you going to hear, you know, some 22-year-old female doing country pop? Probably not. Might you hear something that's like Johnny Cash, kind of weathered and worn and maybe a little gruff kind of country? Probably. Edgy country, maybe a little rednecky? Probably. So if you just use common sense and look at the scene, you're going to think about it. Mary Band says the feminist version would be Daughters of Anarchy. Yeah, as I was talking about this male-dominated stuff, I'm going, oh, shoot, I'm probably going to offend somebody. But you know what? I offend somebody on every episode. So why should the last episode of 2015 be any different? So again, think about the scene. Think about the show. Think about the overall tone of all the episodes, and you're going to find commonality. And if you get into a show, we've all got that series that we will either binge watch or we watch every week. If you just pay attention to the music, you are going to see patterns. Yes, there are going to be exceptions, but there are going to be more patterns and more typical usages and more, you'll find that they might use 3 genres of music over and over and over again. And yeah, you could point to an exception and go, well, I remember on the 4th episode of that season, they used I don't know, some obscure genre of music? Yeah, they might have. They probably did, but it's not what they're typically going to use. So you could play to the outlier thing and try and come up with that unique thing that they're going to use maybe once a season, or you could look at the fact that in that Roadhouse or other shows like that that have, gritty, greasy, dirty bar scenes, that they're typically going to use blues rock, some sort of edgy rock, maybe even classic rock, or probably male dominated country or southern rock, something like that. Let's take another example. Let's say the show is a CIA spy thriller type series. And the bar, again, we're in a bar, bars, cars, and restaurants, and parties. But let's put ourselves back in a bar where there's a clandestine meeting taking place in Washington, D.C. What kind of music would you hear in the background of that bar? Who are the patrons in that bar? What are they wearing? How old are they? What do they listen to when they go home? Jazz? Probably. Chill wave? Possibly. It all depends on the demographic of the people in the scene, and to some extent, the demographic of the people that watch the show. Believe me, music supervisors think about that when they've got to please the producer of the show, they've got to please the storyline, maybe to some extent the director of the show, but they're all trying to please the demographic that's watching the show because they want them to come back every week and keep their ratings up. So, if the demographic of the show is millennials, what are they going to listen to? Are they going to listen to, Frank Sinatra? Probably not. Are they going to lean toward chill wave? Maybe, probably. If it's an older demographic, probably jazz. But they're in a classy, somewhat stuffy Washington, D.C. bar filled with power brokers, right? So what are they going to listen? Hey, Mojo. Nice to see you, buddy. What if you're watching a spy show like Homeland, which I think is one of the best shows that's ever been on TV? Claire Danes, by the way, every episode I sit there on the couch going, that woman should win an Emmy for every episode. She's an amazing actress, by the way. If you're not familiar with the show and her work in it, take time to get caught up on it. So, going back to Homeland, or sticking with Homeland, where did the entire season take place this past year? It just ended, I think, last Sunday maybe. Almost the entire season. Well, the entire season did take place in Germany, mostly Berlin. They had a few parts of some of the episodes where they left Berlin, but 90% of the season took place in Berlin. So what would you hear in a German bar, a German car, a German restaurant, or a German party? And in today's world, not 5 years from now and not 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but today. So that's what you need to create if you're smart enough to go for nichier placements rather than creating yet another singer-songwriter song about lost love, found love, love that may be going through a tough time. The libraries have a lot of that stuff now. They've been working hard for the last 5 years to get more songs, and the singer-songwriter thing, we've definitely seen that slow down of late. But if you find out, watch Variety Magazine, go to their website, which I believe is variety.com, and find out when you see what the log line is for next year's show. Maybe you'll see an announcement go out in Variety that next year the show is going to take place, pick a country, France, because it's a CIA spy show, and with the obvious terrorism that took place in France not long ago, maybe they're going to move the show to France for the 2016 episodes. Well, okay, if the cast is in France and they're spies, where do spies go? Cars, bars, restaurants, maybe not parties, but they may have a scene where they go into a rave or some sort of underground club. So it could be French music of all varieties. It could be French based EDM. It could be sidewalk cafe music, anything that is related to the country of France in any particular contemporary scene or time. You know what I mean? Today, not 5 years ago, most likely, unless they have a flashback scene. So, a zillion people have moody singer-songwriter songs about being heartbroken or reflective or introspective or coming of age, and the music library has a boatload of it. Libraries have a boatload. But let's say that Carrie Matheson, who's the main character in Homeland, gets in her car. Let's go back to Germany for this past year's episode. Sooner or later, she's going to get into her car and there's going to be a radio playing while she's driving until she takes a phone call from her handler. How many songs might you hear in a contemporary German club where the bad guys have an office in the back room? The bad guys always have an office in the back room. So not nearly as many as the singer-songwriter thing, but why not think about the niche? Why not forecast what the niche is going to be based on the research you do of these shows and where the next season is going to take place? And there are usually some hints that are dropped. What about a German hotel lobby? Would that be playing different music than you might hear in a hotel lobby in someplace like Dubai or someplace in the Middle East? Most likely. What would they be listening to? And who would be listening to it? Don't forget the who. So once again, bars, cars, restaurants, and now I'm including parties. So this is really important. Write this down or watch the show again later because this is crucial. Bars, cars, restaurants, and parties. Where is the scene taking place? When does the scene take place? Who is in the scene? What is the scene about? And who's watching the show? If you answer those questions, you will be so far ahead of the rest of the pack that's just writing and recording songs that the muse brings to them that you will just blow them out of the water. If they don't have a particular purpose in mind when they create, they may or may not hit the bullseye. But yet, if you identify what the bullseye is or what several bullseyes are, couldn't you take what you do and aim that at the bullseye? So, it's certainly better than, I made a note. Dear Mr. Music Supervisor, I should say, to be politically correct, dear Mr. or Ms. Music Supervisor, I've got a great song you need to hear. Could you imagine a music supervisor getting that in an email? Really? For what? Again, if you want to know what kind of music is going to be needed in 2016, look at the list of TV shows on all the networks, and you can find that on Wikipedia and probably a dozen or 100 or 1,000 or a million other places. Look at the list of TV shows on all the networks, and then go down the list and go, oh yeah, I've seen that show, or I like that show, or that's appealing or interesting to me. Watch a couple episodes of each of those shows that you're interested in and make notes about how often they use songs and what they typically use the songs for and where in the show. So there's your guide for songs. And some of you are probably saying, I'm going to look at the chat room. Yeah, Mitch Mash says TuneFind is an awesome reference. I completely agree. TuneFind.com. Anyway, what about instrumental music? So far, I've only been talking about songs. Instrumentals, as you know, I'm a huge fan because much of what I've already said so far in this episode applies, but instrumentals are just plain easier. Bars, cars, restaurants, and parties. Where is the scene taking place? When does the scene take place? Who's in the scene? What is the scene about? Who's watching the show? So who, what, when, and where. Basic. Answer those questions and you absolutely will be ahead of the pack. And if you're doing instrumentals, you only need to come up with a couple minutes worth of music as opposed to maybe 3.5 or 4 or 4.5 minutes of music. So it's shorter and therefore less time to record with a shorter runtime. And typically you only need an A section or maybe an A and a B section. right? The A section typically in an instrumental cue is somewhat akin to a chorus. It's like the red meat, it's the good stuff. As we all know, and hopefully you've learned this from watching a lot of episodes of Taxi TV over the last 4 or 5 years, short intros, and I'm talking 4 bars, really short intros, or maybe no intro at all. That's not uncommon. Um, Maybe an A section and a B section, but you don't need to craft an amazing lyric. Lyrics are hard to write. I couldn't write lyrics. I know how to teach people to write lyrics, probably not nearly as well as Robin Frederick or Pat Pattison, but I'm not a bad criticizer of other people's lyrics. But you don't have to write lyrics for instrumental music. It's just plain easier, therefore faster. You don't have to worry about your lyric being universal because it's hard enough writing a great lyric. It's even harder to write a universal lyric that won't conflict with the scene. And you don't have to worry about nailing a great vocal performance that's appropriate for the type of song and conveys what the lyric means. That just makes it easier because you'll have less stuff to mix. And some of the cues you create can be very, very simple with just 1 or 2 or 3 instruments in the production. They don't all have to be, I think a big misconception for the uninitiated is that they think of instrumental cues in TV shows, especially films, but to some degree in TV shows as well, that there are these big John Williams or Hans Zimmer orchestral cues. Yet I would venture a guess, maybe even make a bet, that the vast majority of the cues are an instrument or 2 or 3 or some, maybe a small ensemble. Um, I think I put a piece out in the newsletter, and I talked about this in my opening speech at the Road Rally. Just look at the swampy shows, Swamp People, Duck Dynasty. I think I get to that a little further down here, but a lot of times it's just an instrument or two. So let's go back to Paris for a minute. In a travel show taking place in Paris that needs nothing more maybe than a concertina playing a romantic melody because you got a couple people in a scene standing on a bridge overlooking the Seine and they're holding hands and they're falling in love. And you need falling in love music on a concertina or an accordion. So how much easier would that be to do than writing and recording a full song with lyrics and a vocal? Especially if you're trying to do it either in French, actual French, or in English with a corny French accent, right? Just easier. But Michael, you say, most instrumental cue placements don't pay an upfront sync fee. Um, that's true. Most don't, and I would venture to say that the majority of instrumental cues today are used primarily in reality shows. Not that they don't show up in scripted TV, but there are just so many reality shows on TV. And reality shows use almost entirely instrumental cues, and they use a lot of them. I want to say that one of the supervisors on a panel at the Road Rally, I think she said 75 cues per episode was not uncommon, maybe typical. I could be wrong about that. I'd have to go back and look at the transcript, but pretty sure that number's in the ballpark. So you're right about that. They don't typically pay a sync fee. Sometimes on some of the scripted stuff, on some of the dramas or dramedies, they actually do pay a sync fee. I know I've seen listings very recently, like really recently, like the end of last week, where we've got people looking for instrumental stuff for I think an indie feature film. Some of those listings were for instrumentals, and they had $1,000 sync fees attached to them. But typically, certainly in the world of reality TV, I would say the majority, vast majority maybe, of the instrumental cues don't pay a sync fee up front. But you got to decide where you're going to place your bets. So let's say you got that little concertina, just little squeeze box playing a romantic thing, standing on the bridge, looking out over the Seine, falling in love, and it's on an episode of a show that's on MTV. Well, that show plays several times a day. It gets played all over the world, not all of them, but many of them. You're probably going to make more money from that cue from your ASCAP or BMI Do you guys hear that jet? That's really low. Or a helicopter. Something's flying over. Anyway, you're probably going to make more money in the end over time from that cue, even though you got no sync fee up front. Whereas, let's say you get something on an episode of Homeland. Um, that's going to play once when the show on in the original air date. Actually, Homeland probably does play several times a week. Okay, let's go to a network TV show. Networks are famous for paying more money because the audiences are huge, and that does determine some of how you get paid. But let's say you've got something on, ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox, and it's an episodic dramedy or a drama, and you're going to see it in the original episode that airs in September, October, November, and then when it goes into repeats or reruns, your music's going to run again. So twice. If the show doesn't get picked up for syndication, that's it. You're pretty much toast. So you may have gotten $1,000 or $1,500 for the sync fee, and you may have gotten a nice big fat PRO check on the back end from that. But then it's done, and it may or may not get syndicated, may not repeat more times all over the world. So, like I said, there are no absolutes. You could make a case going either direction, but the instrumental cues are just easier. Therefore, you can make a lot more of them. You can get them into a lot more catalogs, many more catalogs, thereby increasing your probability of getting placements. So, for my money, I would mostly do instrumentals, but you know what? If you have the urge to do songs, do some songs. Just know, I heard this from a library owner, and I'm sure I've got this somewhere in my notes today, but a library owner recently said to me, and I'm scanning to see if I can find it, but he said something on the order of, am I going to swing for the fence trying to get that one singer-songwriter song in the montage of a big show like Grey's Anatomy, or am I going to try and get 21 cues in an episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta? So this guy is now opting to shift his focus away from getting songs into the montages, and where he scoffed a couple of years ago. I remember he scoffed, and I'm underlining and capitalizing and bolding scoffed, the whole concept of instrumental stuff, because that was very music library-esque, and he didn't want to do that because it wasn't cool and it wasn't like high end. Well, he's not scoffing anymore because he's going where the money is and where the probability of making money is. So, what are the popular instrumental cue genres going to be in 2016? Whoops, hold on. We need sound effects for this. Do I have sound effects? Let me see. What are the cues going to be? The popular genres in 2016? Tension cues. Yep, they always need tension cues. We get a lot of listings for those, tons of listings for those, and tons of our members have had tons of placements. And I love the word tons, by the way. So tension cues, yes, absolutely. Swampy, twangy cues that you'd hear in Swamp People, Duck Dynasty, etc., 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 etc. Yes, yes, yes. Sneaky pizzicato cues, oh gosh, what was that show? I can't remember the name of it. It's off the air now, but, ladies in the neighborhood sneaking around looking in their neighbor's window, and you hear doo 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 doo. Yep, always a need for those. Horrific cues, yes. Competition cues, oh yeah, you betcha. Light area acoustic guitar cues, yep, always a market for those. Cocktail jazz cues, absolutely. And I want to take a break here and tell you about Bob Meddy, one of our taxi members. I don't know how old Bob is, but he's not 21 years old, right, Bob? I'm guessing that Bob is probably in his late 40s, early 50s. I hope I'm not insulting him. I'm basing this on he's got a son that I think is college age or out of college. Bob flies around the country constantly. That guy's in the air like probably 3 or 4 times a week, flying all over the country doing sales-oriented stuff. He's an extremely talented jazz pianist. And he's had 4 placements on the show Nashville, I want to say maybe just this past season alone. if not, in recent memories, had 4 placements, I believe, of his cocktail jazz piano. Now, Bob is a working musician. Yeah, he's on the road all the time and he's flying around doing sales stuff. But he's been playing piano bars and other gigs like that for a long time. He's really, really talented. The music he writes, it's not that it's so complex and he's the greatest composer you'll ever meet, but he totally nails the genre and he does it with such authenticity that you shut your eyes and listen to Bob's music and you are absolutely in that restaurant, or you're absolutely in that lounge with the scallop shaped booth with the red leather tufted stuff in the booth, upholstery in the booth. So I think, I don't know. I'm guessing, probably an educated guess, that those placements, this is just a guess on my part, but and he got these through a publisher, a music library that we've had a very, very long relationship with. Um, I'm guessing that each one of those placements probably generated a sync fee of somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple $1,000, maybe more. Um, and Bob gets half that money up front. Plus, it's on a huge hit TV show on a major network. So Bob is making some nice dough on those. And it's nothing more than Bob's talented fingers and a piano. Okay? So it just goes to show that if you're hitting a good niche, something that the market actually needs, and you're good at it, you can make some money doing it. If I were Bob, and he probably does this, I would sit down and try and crank out 3 or 4 of those a week and get them into 10 different libraries, because there's always a need for somebody sitting in a bar or a restaurant where there is cocktail jazz being played. And I'm not talking about jazz that's so far outside that it's going to distract from the dialogue or distract from the storyline. No, it's just jazz that's got a groove, got a pocket, and it just, you shut your eyes and you're in that room. You can practically smell the room, if you know what I mean. Um, okay, so traveling cues. Yeah, somebody's driving down a country road. Could be anything from banjo picking to who knows what, but traveling music. Suspense cues, they are always going to need suspense cues. Um, Indie pop cues. That's a relatively new one, but very popular. Um, Contemporary music is part of the culture. And depending on who the audience is, what the demographic is for watching a particular show, if it's a younger demographic, they're going to want indie pop cues because they want music that's going to sound like it's appropriate for remember who, what, when, and where. They're going to want music that sounds like the millennials in that scene, in that club that millennials would frequent in today's current market. What would they listen to? Indie pop. Do they need lyrics? No, because there's dialogue going on. So would they take a song and dump the vocal and do a mix minus vocal? Yeah. Would they love instrumental cues that just get right to the A section, which is essentially the chorus, and sound like an indie pop hit? Absolutely. Electro cues. Yeah. Electro driven, almost anything in a similar kind of situation would absolutely work. Blues rock cues, frankly, I'm shocked at how long Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. What's the other group? I can't. Black Keys. Those types of acts definitely influenced the sound and the use of a lot of that music in a lot of shows. Blues cues, yes, 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 and yes on all those things. Excuse me, I have a raspy throat. Must be time for a little rock star. Yes. Post Road Rally Rockstar. Thank you, PepsiCo, for sponsoring the Road Rally. Hip hop cues. Oh my gosh, how many listings do you see for hip hop? And I can't begin to tell you how some of our most successful members absolutely never did a hip hop thing of any sort in their entire musical career. Some of these guys went 20, 30 years of making music, never laid a finger on a hip hop drum beat, ever. Maybe they joined Taxi to be a country songwriter or a rock star or whatever. And one day, Stephen Baird from, not Sarasota, Florida, somewhere in Florida. Okay, Stephen Baird, I think, wanted to be a rock star, and one time he decided to take a shot at a hip hop cue, got a placement, and went, "Damn, I'm good at this." So all of a sudden, he started making more hip hop cues. That guy is making some serious bread that anybody watching this show would love to be making. He is now a full time composer, and hip hop was the thing that launched him into the hearts, minds, and consciousness of many, many library owners and supervisors that now rely on him for several varieties, maybe many genres of music. Excuse me, there's my weekly rockstar burp, which I do very politely, I might add. Um, he launched himself into the stratosphere and put himself in this enviable position of making a six-figure income. And I think it all started with hip hop cues, with a particular hip hop cue. So there you go. Let Stephen Baird be your guide. And how many variations of each of those genres are used every day all over the world. It's not just one kind of hip hop cue. And like I've said 1,000 times, kind of doing a refresher course from 2015, if you've already got your sounds set up, you've got your patches, you've got your plugins all set, everything is ready to go on a hip hop cue, why not make other hip hop cues that suit other moods? And, one could be a mid tempo kind of badass hip hop cue. Another one could be a fun party hip hop cue. You could do a whole range of stuff basically with the same sounds just by changing the chord progression and the melody and maybe adding or subtracting a few rhythmic things to change it up a little bit. But it's not like the library owners or especially the supervisors are going to sit down and listen to all 10 of your hip hop cues that you did that week and go, oh my gosh, these are all somewhat derivative of each other. No, the odds of that happening, practically non-existent. Maybe not so much in the library world, but in the supervisor world, pretty darn sure that they're not going to sit down and listen to all your hip-hop cues that were made in that week. So it doesn't matter if they're using the same drum sounds or, just different chord changes, different melodies, different tempos. Have at it. And can you do niche-oriented cues for genres? Niche-oriented genres for cues? Hell yes. How about hip hop? That one's kind of taken off right now. Let's think outside of the box. Let's combine some apples and oranges and make an orange? No, I don't know, whatever. How about polka with a hip hop beat? It's worth checking out, right? What might, let's come up with a title, because I'm big on titles. What might you title that cue? Polka Hop? That way a music supervisor or an editor working on a reality show where maybe some hip-hoppy guy is going to a beer garden for Oktoberfest, how cool would it be for that editor to see Polka Hop as a song title or a cue title? Slug that in and go, oh my gosh, this is perfect for what I'm doing. This is fresh, it's original, it's outside of the box, but it works in the context of this show. Damn, I like that composer. What else did Michael Lasko do? Let me look at my hard drive and see if that dude's got any other titles in there that might work for this show. You just made that editor love you. And just for the record, we've seen, I mentioned this before, we've seen a really big uptick in the amount of instrumental cues that are needed by libraries and supervisors over the last year. And we see no reason why that's going to abate in 2016. So again, let me repeat, we've seen somewhat less demand for songs and definitely an increase. People who were turning their noses up at instrumentals have now realized that there are orchestral instrumentals to which 3 years ago or 2 years ago they're going, oh no, I've got tons of orchestral instrumentals. Yeah, you do, but guess what? They sound like 1994. You need some cool stuff that's hybrid, that's got some electro elements or guitar elements. It sounds like what's happening today, not like what happened in 1994, all right? So everybody rushed out to sign songs over the last 5 years, and while doing so, I think a lot of them forgot that even measly instrumental cues needed to be fresh and updated so they sound current. The times they are changing. Music is like fashion. Whatever is on the radio or on the charts or on YouTube or on iTunes or on Spotify or Pandora, That's what they want for contemporary shows. Forget the, the shows that take place in the 1800s or something that takes place in the future. But today's contemporary, taking place now in current time shows, they want music that sounds fresh and contemporary and is reflective of the genres being used right now today. Oh, there it is. As one music library owner told me not long ago, I can swing for the fence to get that one song in the montage of a drama, or I can get 21 instrumental cues in a reality show. And that is an actual quote. So, what genre should you be writing and recording in 2016? Watch TV, kids, and figure out what you're good at that intersects with what the shows frequently use, and stand there laughing while your friends who are creating artistic songs that take weeks or months to finish and never find a home are just standing there while you're making money. And there we have it. In 46 minutes, I covered, at least partly, what I think the industry is going to look for in 2016. Any questions from the Peanut Gallery? It's nice to be back, by the way. I missed you guys. I see something about Russell saying ML will let you know about the spammer. I don't know what we're talking about, but Russell, let me know. I mean, do we have a spam bot that's hitting the show today because we don't have a producer in there? I don't know what to tell you. The show's almost over, so it doesn't matter. Oh, I see. Ferdinand J. Wong. All right, we're not going to pay any attention to that person. Island Julie says, happy to have you back, Michael. Thanks. It feels great to be back. It really does. You guys are like my home base, you know? I wish we could kick off Ferdinand. I don't have any way to block Ferdinand while I'm doing the show, so let's just ignore Ferdinand. Wondering about how useful it'd be to watch shows that don't use Taxi. It's getting to the point where you'd be hard pressed to find shows that don't have Taxi music. You know, it's not that we're getting into every show ourselves on every network all the time, but our members either directly through us or through getting library deals through us. There's so much Taxi music out there now. It's just sick. So, Mary Band says, thank you. I just rejoined Taxi. Thanks, Mary Band. Good to have you back. How can you find out what shows are in production or going to be in production to know what music is needed? I think I mentioned it earlier. Go to Variety, variety.com. There you go. Is it uncommon for people to ask for 10 to 20 tracks of a style before submitting? I don't know what that means, Jim. You need to clarify that. Luger says he gets withdrawals without these shows. Michael, thank you so much for the Ozone 7 plug-in from your last broadcast. That was Robbie J. Hancock. You're welcome, Robbie. How do you list collaborative works on Taxi? You put your name and the co-writer's name. Thanks for the welcome back, Bubbles. Missed you guys. Or IMDb. By the way, I find that IMDb crashes my computer a lot. I don't know what it is. My computer's video card is twitchy. I've got like a 6-year-old MacBook Pro that's a really beefy MacBook Pro that's wonderful in every other regard, but the video card's a little screwy, and I think that goes on the motherboard, and that's like $700 to replace, so I vacillate between replacing that or just getting a new computer. But the new computers don't have enough ports for me. Danny Weber, sorry for your loss. Thank you. Do you think it's okay to do deals for cues for little or no income pro bono to gain contacts. I would have to speak to you privately about that because it really is very, very dependent on a particular situation, on what the situation is. Should edit points pause or be quiet, or is it okay to make a quick, smooth transition? No, I'm just easy edit points just means there's good, solid beats that are easy to edit on. You don't have to take, I hear that from time to time where people think that means putting a rest in. You don't need a rest. You just need a big kick drum or a big snare or a big something that makes it easy to cut. Hey Vicky, thanks. Happy New Year to you too. There's that same question again. Peaches, I was a Taxi member in 1994 and just rejoined. I'm glad to have you back. Boy, have you missed a lot. You're really going to enjoy Taxi a lot more than you did in 1994. For one thing, back then we had about 30 listings a month, and now we've got well over 100, I think. Let's see, but I do remember you, Peaches. Flufferpuff says, I have to go. Cat's burning dinner. Ooh, talented cat. Russell Nolan says, I just rejoined myself, and wow. Island Julie says, just rejoining. We had so many people that renewed over the holidays. I'm just blown away by that. Taxi is so much more than it was even 5 years ago or 10 years ago. I'm amazed by all these people that, tried it for a while and didn't get anywhere and stopped using us, and they just don't realize how much they've missed. But I think the reason a lot of people are coming back is they realize that it's a process. It's a combination of all the tools like this show, the peer-to-peer section of the forum, the road rally, networking bonanza. And that all this stuff goes into it, and eventually it comes together. It takes time. It's not going to happen in 30, 60, or 90 days. Probably won't even happen in any big way over a year. But over 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden people are going, I made $3,500 last year doing what I love to do. Not a fortune, but it adds up, and it's something. And the catalog keeps building, and the money gradually rises, and over time, not a bad retirement income. Bob Lagrasso says, just went to my first road rally and it was amazing. I'm collaborating with several people. There you go, Bob. Vicky Flawith says, Sharon, post your returns on the peer-to-peer section of the forum and we'll try to help. So there's somebody that's having a problem getting a lot of returns, and Vicky gave out great advice, which is go to the peer-to-peer section of the forum, one of the greatest tools that Taxi has. I just finished, Palionath. I just finished studying with Berkeley Online and Taxi, and its critiques are my plan to continue developing as a composer. Glad to see you back, Peaches. I wanted to rejoin with that offer. We had a discount that went out for the holidays, but never got a reply to my question about not being due to renew until March. It was just for people that it wasn't applicable to people who are current members. Like if your membership renews in March, it was only applicable for people who haven't been a member for a long time and were on that particular list. But there is a discount if you save money if you renew before your membership runs out. And you can do a 2-year renewal for, I don't want to misquote the number, but I think a 2-year renewal is like $300, so it works out to $150 a year, and you still get 2 free passes to the road rally. It's like stupidly cheap. Whoa, I need. Russell Landwehr says, I made a friend on Facebook and talked Taxi up to him, and he joined and has a forward for his first submission. Scary. But, glad to hear it. Thanks for the referral, Russell. But, geez, I hope the guy gets more forwards. He must be talented or he wouldn't have gotten the forward. That's pretty lucky. Well, Peaches says, I just got my first forward because of watching Taxi TV this last year. That's why I do it. Like I said, I spent 3 or 4 hours today writing this stuff for the show. It takes time, and I do it because I want you guys to get really, really good. I want you to get more deals, and it's all self-serving because the more of you that get deals, the more great things people hear about Taxi. And as you know, I'm really passionate about this. We're on a mission. And it frustrates me when people aren't successfully using Taxi, but it's probably because they didn't use Taxi well. So we're on a mission to get everybody to do it. Oh man, I'm way behind. Bob Lagrasso says, wife loved the road rally. We made many lifelong friends. Isn't that the best? Uh, Bubbles says, it's been over 4 years of me being on this Monday show, almost 5 years. I don't even know. I think I've been doing the show for almost 5 years. And it all started out with one of my daughters calling me saying, I was working on a Saturday, not unusual. My daughter said, hey, Dad, there's some baby birds hatching out of their eggs live on this thing called Ustream. And I went to check it out, and there was a red button that said broadcast now. And I clicked the button and just started talking about this stuff, and 22 people showed up. That was the birth of Taxi TV. Adriana says, next year will be my 3rd year. I think she means watching the show. Thank you, Adriana. Good to hear from you. Thank you for your kind words last week. MJ Green just had a Christmas cue forwarded. Great. Trying to scroll down and get caught back up with you guys. I joined 2 years at a time. On my 5th year now. 2016 is going to rock. I sure hope so. Wow, $300 US is $430 in Australian dollars right now. Ouch. I can't really give like a special Australian discount as much as I would love to, but I think other people from other countries would all be really ticked off about that. Keith Lynch. Hey, Keith. How are you, man? Road Rally is great this year. I have quite a few forwards. No calls yet. Any tips? Yeah. Right. What is it? Here we go. Can't believe it's been like 3 weeks since I've done an episode, and I already forgot this. Write, submit, forget, and repeat. Look, you know this, Keith. You've been around for a while, and you're a smart guy, a really smart guy. Just keep writing. Keep throwing the seeds out in the garden. Some things will sprout in the spring. Some will take root in the fall. Winter wheat. They call it that for a reason. So just know that all those forwards out there are working for you, and eventually over time some of them will turn into signings and placements. But what you don't want to do is sit there waiting by the phone, because it'll just kill you mentally. It'll take your guts and tie them up in a knot. Just keep writing, because everything you write, every time you record, every time you produce something new, it'll be better than the last one because you'll be more experienced. Just keep cranking it out, because you want to keep planting seeds in as many places as you can. Metri Steve says, I believe in you and will continue to be a member. Thank you. I appreciate that, Steve. And just know we're working hard for you guys. Amanda, Taxi is what got me where I am in my 5-year plan. Not massive success, but the bits I've had are due to Taxi. Thanks. Mojo chimes in with write, submit, forget, and repeat. The members say that for a reason. It's so true. Hey, Steve Giles, how are you, buddy? I just saw a picture of you over the weekend. I was looking at the road rally shots on. By the way, if you haven't seen them, go to taxi.com, go to the menu bar at the top, pull it down to newsletter, and look at the current newsletters out there. I think we've got like 65 or 67 road rally shots. And the first shot is the member panel about collaboration. I think we called it Collaboration Nation. That was my favorite shot, I think, of the entire road rally this year. Look at the faces of those members. That tells you everything you need to know about our members and the road rally in particular. And Russell and Giles were both on that thing, and it was a great panel. Is it mandatory to register with ASCAP or BMI? Yeah, pretty much. If you want to get paid for performance income, performance royalties, yes. Um, Scrolling down. How to ASCAP BMI track your music. Wow. Go to their sites and read their respective explanations of how they calculate what you get paid. Mind-blowingly hard to understand unless I'm a simpleton. I know I'm not that smart, certainly not like a trigonometry major. Really, really hard to understand. Russell Landwehr says the longer you do this, the easier it is to do the forget part, meaning the write, submit, forget, and repeat mantra. That and old age. Good one, Russell. Who is Bob Meddy in the room? Bob goes by his real name. I don't think he's here. Stephen Carey says, Michael, I had the same problem with the few USB ports on my Mac. It was solved by a USB 3 Hub 7 to be exact. A bunch of numbers in there. Bought it on Sweetwater for about $40. Hope that helps. Thank you. Hey, I got the coolest thing. I was on one of my plane trips to Chicago, and I saw this lady sitting next to me. I need to pull out my phone for this. Oh, you know what? Don't go away. I got to show you something really cool. I saw a lady sitting across the aisle from me because now you can watch movies and TV shows on your phone, right? Or your iPad while you're on the plane. On United, you can log into their system, which works sometimes, other times doesn't. And this lady had this cool little device. And I said, where'd you get it? She said, just Google it. So I went and I found them on Amazon, and I think I got 10 of them. And they were so ridiculously cheap. Like, I can't even begin to tell you. I found them for as little as 57 cents a piece. Oh, it works better when you turn the phone this way. Anyway, when you're sitting on a plane and you want to watch a movie, use this little doodad to put it on the tray table. It's plastic. It's under $1. If you lose it, no biggie. I've got them in 10 colors. And best 57-cent investment I've made in a long time. So there you go on that. The ear checks are tremendously helpful. Could I do some more of those soon? Yes, absolutely. There's Bob B. Meddy. Hi, Bob. How are you, man? Talked about you earlier. I don't know if you were in here or not. Sharon Hahn says, follow through with Road Rally contacts. Had a blast at my first rally and now working with Jan Linder Coda. Just completed a song in production. Steve Giles says he's good. Oh, man, I'm so far behind in this thing. Is there any video from the open mics? Only stuff that members shot. Loving these chill track listings. I think Mojo's being funny when he says I met almost everybody on that panel. That was a play on words, I think. Either that or just a typo. Yeah, Steve Carey, that USB thing was very... if you could actually email that to Lisa at taxi.com, because once I go off air, the whatchamacallit is lost, and she's not producing the show. Otherwise, she would have already copied that for me. So just, if you would be so kind, email that to Lisa at taxi.com and just say for Michael in all caps in the subject line. For Michael USB port. Thank you. I would appreciate that. Ferdinand Wong, let it go. No kidding. I wish Lisa wasn't on vacation. Where's the best place to get information on recording broadcast quality? I'm going to tell you right now, but if you go to the Taxi website and search broadcast quality, you'll see some stuff pop up. It may be a little out of date. Might not be. Broadcast quality doesn't mean that it's got to sound... broadcast quality could mean 48-track digital multi-million-dollar studio. Generally speaking, what it means is is it clean and well balanced? Other things can affect it. You can have something where the recording is very clean and well balanced in the mix, but the vocal is very pitchy and not in a good way. I mean, some of the cool indie stuff is like kind of intentionally pitchy, and it adds to the vibe and the legitimacy and the authenticity of the whole thing. Other times, it's a great track, but the vocal is done by a vocalist that just probably shouldn't be singing on it. That can blow your broadcast quality. It's just got to be, it can't be demo in demo form, because if a supervisor wants to use it, they need it like now, because it's going to go on next week's episode. So they're not going to write you back and say, wow, love the song. Do you have time this week to go in and re-record it and do a final version of it? They just can't do that. So it's got to be ready to go. And that means cleanly recorded, well balanced, good performance. And again, broadcast quality could be nothing more than an acoustic guitar. Literally, just finger picking on an acoustic guitar, or a ukulele doing basic strums, but it's about the vibe and is it applicable to various types of scenes. Sometimes you'll hear broadcast quality stuff that was literally done with the built-in mic on a laptop and a guitar that's got rusty old strings, an acoustic guitar with rusty strings, and a vocalist that sounds like they gargled with sand, gravel, and vodka for breakfast. But in the context of what they were looking for that show or that scene, it works. So broadcast quality can be many things, but it's good that you're watching Taxi TV, because we talk about this a lot. Talking about the Packers, deep trouble. The forum has many. See, this is why Mojo got the Community Service Award, because there you go. The Taxi Forum at forums with an S, forums.taxi.com. There's a ton of stuff about broadcast quality in there. And you know what? You can go to the peer-to-peer section of our forum. Again, at forums with an S, forums.taxi.com. Go to peer-to-peer, which is one of the subcategories, and put up a link to your song on or your cue on SoundCloud or in your taxi hosting page, and just say, can you guys let me know if this is broadcast quality? And you'll get feedback from people that know what they're talking about, that don't have some snarky hidden agenda like some other sites where they want to keep you down on the farm. Our people want to lift you up, because rising water floats all boats. Yeah, slap a taxi logo on that thing. The thought has crossed my mind. I love this thing. I can't say it. You know, even if it breaks, I mean, it's just cheesy plastic, but it's cool. Ferdinand Wong, I'm coming to your house and I'm going to beat you senseless later. Mojo says he's got some open mic recordings. I was at the open mic on Saturday night. Spent a little time in the 200-seat theater and then meandered over to the other ballroom on the second floor. I was in there for about an hour and a half, and I was amazed by the quality of some of the stuff. I hear that every year. I also hear every year from the industry people that know me well, some that don't know me well, that they're blown away by the quality of what they hear on the listening panels and the open mics at the Road Rally. I got some emails during the Road Rally after the music supervisor panel. I think virtually every one of those supervisors shot me an email within 3 hours of that panel being over saying, wow, Lasco, I had no idea. Amazing stuff. You should be proud. I am. I'm really proud of you guys. Yeah, an equipment advertiser using broadcast quality in an advertisement. They used to call it studio quality or master quality, and those really didn't apply to the way the industry was going. And I will unabashedly take credit for, I believe, the first use of the term broadcast quality, which I stole from, I believe it was Panasonic talking about their video cameras. And I thought, broadcast quality. That explains it, because there's demo. At the time, there was only demo quality. This was probably in the mid to late 90s. There was demo quality and there was master or studio quality. but yet film and TV people needed something that was in the middle, better than demo, and maybe not as extravagant as what you would get in a multi-million-dollar studio. So thanks to the kind folks at Panasonic Video Cameras, I hijacked their term broadcast quality, and I believe that it's become pretty much, what's the word, ubiquitous? Forwards. I see that on competitive websites talking about, we forward your music. You will not be able to find anybody in the music industry using the term forwarded in the context that we use it in prior to Taxi. So thank you very much. Let me see. Thank you, Stephen. I keep asking music engineer pals how to do basic mixing, and they always say it's too hard, you can't do it. Bullpucky. You can. You know what? You got to start somewhere. If you go back to some of the earliest episodes of Taxi TV, probably in 2010, you will find one where I took my kids' little plastic chairs and tables and place them around our backyard. Our backyard looks out at an unobstructed view of a mountain range, and we have some bushes, and we have grass in the foreground, bushes in the background, and then far away a mountain range. And I explained like the oral landscape using these props in our backyard. It to this date is one of the most loved episodes of Taxi TV. So go back and you will find that probably around 2009, 2010. Gosh, I've been doing this that long. And you'll see in the still frame, probably see pictures of like a red chair and a blue chair and a yellow chair in our backyard. That's a great thing. Also, there's a gentleman, I'm looking around to see if his book's nearby, and it's not. A dear friend of many of us, a gentleman named Fett, F-E-T-T. Fett has no last name that you know. And Fett, what's the name of Fett's book? Because it's, I think, one of the best books, if not the best book on mixing that's out there. Your engineer pals are lying to you. Now, I don't want to call them liars, but look, you're not going to learn how to mix overnight. You're not going to learn how in a week. And it's one of those things. It's like if you started out to become an oil painter, can you learn how to paint in a week? No. But could you watch videos on YouTube or watch that painting guy on national or public television and probably paint a beach scene with some puffy clouds and palm trees in a week? Probably. Would you be painting a better version of that in 6 months? Yes. Would you be painting a really incredible version of it in a couple of years? Yeah. Mixing is very much like that. And the more basic, you know what, if you're just doing a concertina, not a whole lot to mix. Just, watch your levels and, don't make it sound tinny or too boomy, and there you go. Then if you add, a violin to the concertina, figure out where the balance is between those two things. Start out simply and learn and grow from there. It's like anything where art meets craft. Bubbles has to go. See you, Bubbles. I'm going to go in a minute, too. Keith Lynch has got a ukulele. I've been thinking about getting a ukulele. Vicky Flowett said, Ingrid, I learned to mix so you can. Hit me up on the Taxi forum if you want, if you like. Absolutely. I watched Vicky go from not getting stuff right in the beginning, but with a burning desire to get it right. She paid attention to her fellow members, got very well networked with a bunch of really smart, really kind-hearted, really patient, talented people, and she made such great use of that and became really good at what she does because of the Taxi community. All right, a lot of people are saying they gotta go. All right, I'm scrolling down to the bottom. Fett's mixing roadmap. All right. Couple more questions. I'm fading fast, Amanda. Peter Rahill. Hey, Peter. Good night, Amanda. All right, let's call it a night, you guys. Thank you for tuning in this week. Thank you again for all the kind wishes about my mom's passing. Um, Bob Meddy, great last comment. Is Maz, who's one of our long-running members, says it's not in the gear, it's the ears. Absolutely. You know what? For if you've got a laptop, $150 USB microphone, couple of plug-ins, and some decent ears, you can get started and make recordings that will absolutely be good enough to get used in film and TV. So there you have it. Thanks, guys. I will see you next week. And have a great New Year's Eve. Don't drink and drive. I hate to be preachy about that, but you know what? Just don't do it. Stay home and get drunk. And I will see you guys in 2016. And thanks for watching today. With that, I bid you adieu. Bye-bye.